Real World's Whitetail Soybeans, the only full season soybean blend on the market to give your whitetails the nutrition they need all season.
We're into the late season now, and it's one of my favorite times of the year to hunt. In fact, the last 4 bucks I've shot have all been in the late season, and 3 of those 4 came after Christmas. And I've just come to realize that late in the year, when the weather gets bad, is probably the best time to kill a mature buck, because when the weather gets bad and you're on a good food source, uh, even the most nocturnal bucks will sometimes get on their feet and hit those food sources before dark, and it's even better than the rut. But we're sitting over a soybean food plot, and all 4 of the bucks I shot in late season, my last 4, have been either on or real close to a soybean food plot. And actually, soybeans were probably the first, or was the first product that we started working on with Real World Wildlife Seed. And actually, the seed company just kind of grew from my personal desire to have a soybean product that worked well in the late season. When I started planting soybeans in my food plots, I would just get some soybean seed from one of my neighbors who's a farmer, and some years it worked out great, and then some years I'd have a good bean crop, but as we got late into the fall, the soybean pods on the plants would open up and drop those beans out on the ground, and it's called shatter, and those soybean pods were shattering open and dropping the soybeans. And on the years that happened, I didn't have a food source for the deer this time of year. So when we started Real World Wildlife Seed, the first thing we did was we got our hands on every variety of soybean that we possibly could. And I think the first year we tested close to 60 different soybean varieties, and put them side by side in little test plots and let them stand through the winter. And we selected 3 of the varieties that were the most shatter resistant and used them in our Real World soybean blend. It's a Roundup ready product, so it's easy to grow. In fact, soybeans are one of the easiest food plots to grow, period. And it works so well for us that that kind of got the ball rolling for Real World Wildlife Seed. During this past growing season, when we planted last spring, we did a side-by-side comparison between our Real World soybeans and another brand of forage soybeans. And the other brand's a very popular brand, and it's probably got its application. But during the late season, when the plants have fully matured and you're dependent on that bean pod, I don't think it can hold a candle to our Real World soybeans. So we did a side-by-side comparison. We started on the day that we planted the food plot last spring, and throughout the season we've been videoing different stages of the growth, and we've documented all that on video, and we'd like to show you that now.
Hi folks, I'm Don Higgins. I'm one of the co-founders of Real World Wildlife Seed, and today we're on my property planting food plots. Our motto with Real World Wildlife Seed is dare to compare. We want our customers to plant our products side by side with any other product on the market and compare for themselves. We believe if they do that our products will come out on top 99% of the time. And that's exactly what we're going to do here today on my property. As you can see, we've placed a white stake right in the middle of this plot. On one side we're going to plant our Real World Wildlife soybeans, and on the other side we're going to plant one of our competitors' soybeans. And we're going to film this process all the way through. You can watch as these beans mature, and during hunting season we're going to be hunting out of this blind right behind me, and we're going to film how the deer utilize both sides of this food plot, and you can see for yourself. As you can see, there's an obvious difference in Real World seed versus our competitor's soybean seed. Let me explain some of those differences to you. Let's start with the competitor seed. As you can see, there's a lot of discolored seeds. There's some even green immature seeds in the bunch, some black, but a lot of immature seed. And these are being promoted as a forage soybean. And I'm sure they do an excellent job. They produce tons of forage per acre, and that's where this product shines. On the other hand, our Real World seed, first off, you can see there's a color difference. And the color difference is basically a coating, a fungicide coating that is put on the Real World seed There's about 4 different fungicide issues or fungal issues with soybeans, especially in the spring when they're planted. And by treating that seed, you can avoid a lot of issues and have a lot more success with your planting. So we've treated our Real World seed with that fungicide. You'll also notice that the seed is much more uniform. They're all about the same size, same shape, mature seed. We selected the Real World seed basically on shatter resistance. We tested nearly 60 varieties of soybeans, and we selected the 3 that are the most shatter resistant that we could find and packaged them together in our Real World Wildlife Soybean Blend. If you're not familiar with shatter resistance means that those beans are going to stay in the pod. A lot of soybean varieties, the beans have a tendency that the soybean pod will break open and those soybeans will shatter out onto the ground where they're doing the wildlife absolutely no good. Our beans have proven to stay into the pod, into March, April, way past the hunting season, way past the winter months when the deer really need them. And our soybeans are still going to be in the pod where the wildlife can utilize them. As you can see, we've now got our plot planted. On the far side of the plot is our competitor's bean, and up here where we're at is our Real World bean. Now this fall, as we're hunting out of the elevated blind that you can see behind me, as we're looking out that blind, to our right will be the competitor's bean and to our left will be our Real World bean. And we'll monitor this process all through the growing season and this fall through the hunting season, and you can see for yourself the difference in the 2 bean varieties. Soybeans are one of the easiest plots to grow. We started here today with some ground that we had worked yesterday and just came in with a broadcast seeder and broadcast the bean seed on top of the ground, and then took a short piece of fence panel and drug it behind an ATV to kind of cover the beans. And you can use a piece of chain link fence or anything like that behind an ATV to cover the beans. Even if some of them are still visible on the ground, that's all right. Beans are really easy to grow. As soon as we get a rain, we're going to have beans everywhere. Now one thing we're also going to have is some weed competition with these beans. But these beans are Roundup ready, which means we can come in and spray a Roundup herbicide right over the top of them and kill the weeds and not hurt the beans at all. So the next clip you'll see will be of us coming back later. The beans will be up, but there'll be plenty of weed growth with them, and we're going to spray those and show you what happens there. So stay tuned as we continue this process. It's been about 4 weeks since we planted our test plot of Real World soybeans next to our competitors. Both the Real World bean and the competitor's bean are what is called Roundup ready, which means you can spray a Roundup product right over the top of them and the product will kill the weeds but not hurt the soybeans. Roundup is a trade name for glyphosate, so any glyphosate product will work. We're going to spray that over this plot today and come back here in a few days and show you how the herbicide has killed the weeds but not damaged the soybeans at all. Now when it comes time to spray your plot, you want to wait till the ground is pretty much covered with vegetation, both soybeans and weeds. If your plants are short and you can see a lot of soil, then you want to wait a little bit. Let those beans and weeds get up about a foot tall and then spray your glyphosate over the top of them. And you should only have to do that one time and you'll have a good soybean crop for your deer.